Hi, I'm here with Tom King, who was a sentry dog handler for the Air Force in Vietnam. And Tom, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Okay. And maybe you can start off by telling the viewers a little bit about your life before you joined the Air Force.
I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, south central part of the state. I was an avid swimmer in the summertime because our town had a swimming pool. I was an avid ice skater in the wintertime because ice skating was a big thing up there. I lived in a scenic area that was geological due to the last glacier that came through, so it was very, very fun being out there. In high school, I was on the track team, pole vaulter. Actually made it to state my junior year. But anyway, after I had paper routes as I was growing up.
So did I. I had to learn a morning paper too.
And when I was 16 years old, I got my driver's license and went to work at a pizza place there in my hometown and bought a motor scooter, and somehow I put 18,000 miles on it in 2 summers.
And how did you end up joining the Air Force?
Well, my father says, it's time for you to start thinking about what you're going to do in life.
Okay.
So I went to the recruiter's office. I had already done my registered, and so I went to the recruiter's office, and I really liked airplanes, so I figured I'd join the Air Force. So I took all the aptitude tests, and my recruiter said, well, you can probably be an air traffic controller.
Okay.
So they sent me down to Lackland Air Force Base, and I was going through basic, and I took the physical for air traffic control, and my vision kept me from being an air traffic controller. So at the end of basic training, they said you can either become a cook or a military policeman. So I said, well, I can definitely become a military policeman. So I stayed right there at Lackland and went through military police school. And once I got done with that, I was sent right up here to Lockbourne, which is the south end of Columbus, just outside of town.
So how did you end up in the Sentry Dog Handler program?
Well, once I got back up here to Lockbourne Air Force Base, I spent my first year working security, guarding airplanes and controlling access to restricted areas. And an opening came in the Sentry Dog section. And I jumped on that in a heartbeat because I didn't like guarding airplanes and sitting in control towers, or not control towers, but sentry towers and that kind of thing. So I got into the Sentry Dog program out there at Lockbourne then.
Okay, how did it work? Did you start immediately with the dog that was assigned to you, and then go through the training with them? Or?
I started immediately with a dog named Kuno. He'd been there for quite a long time, and he was about 7.5 years old, and he was not your typical sentry dog. He was fairly timid, but I worked with him until I got my orders for Vietnam. Well, I got my orders, and along with my orders came the order that I would take the best dog in our kennels. So we had a new dog that had only been at Lockbourne Air Force Base for about 3 or 4 months. And I started the process of taking him over, which was very difficult because I had to take him over from the handler that trained with him in Texas. And anyway, it took over a week before I could get in to even pet him or anything.
Really?
But finally I got him out into the kennel area and got walking around with him and trained with him some. I went on the job training at that time.
Okay. And so first of all, what was the dog's name, the new dog?
The first dog was Kuno, and the second dog was Fritz.
Okay. So Fritz, how did it go getting him ready for Vietnam and everything? How did that happen?
The main thing was working with him, getting to know his moves and what caused him to react and that type of stuff. So we worked for a month and a half there at Lockbourne Air Force Base, and then I went home on leave.
Okay.
And when I got back, they'd sent a shipping crate to take him to Texas.
Okay. Now, did you both fly over together then? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
I originally went down to Texas because I had never been through dog school.
Okay.
And we went back through dog school together. And that was obedience training, how to quarter a post, in other words, search for individuals, and attack training
Hmm.
and aggression training that we had. And that's basically what we had before we went to Vietnam.
How many weeks was that?
I would say a month.
A month or so. Okay.
Uh-huh. And while we were down there, he got sick. He
Okay.
had upper respiratory infection, so he had to go into the hospital for almost 2 months, so it delayed. I was supposed to be in Vietnam the 19th of December, and we got delayed until the 24th of January to go over there. But once he got well, we flew from Lackland to San Francisco, and from there we caught a C-141, flew to Hawaii, to Wake Island, to Guam, and then on into Cam Ranh Bay.
And then once you got to Vietnam, where were you stationed, and what was kind of your day-to-day routine there?
I left Cam Ranh Bay and I went up to a new base they were building. It wasn't even built yet. It was just being built. There was an assault runway. So I caught a C-130 and we flew up there and lived in tents for the first 4 months while they were building our hooches. Our dogs were staked on the beach with a shipping crate until they got our kennels done. Then once we got established there, we were working all this time, and they didn't have all the concertina fence done around the base yet. So our day-to-day operation didn't get stabilized for quite a while, even though we worked every night. The job of a sentry dog is to detect, detain, and destroy if necessary. So our dogs were very aggressive. That dog depended on me for everything.
Mm-hmm.
We fed them, we dipped them, we tick dipped them. We gave them their monthly pills for fleas and ticks. And so he relied on me 100%.
Was there certain on-duty hours? Did it rotate?
Our
or-
on-duty hours were from dusk to dawn
Okay.
every night. We would go out to the kennels and go to guard mount.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they gave us our instructions for the night. We would mount up on deuce-and-a-half trucks, and they would take us around our different posts. They'd put 10 to 12 dogs on a truck, and they were always going after each other and after the other handlers and stuff. So we always had to keep them muzzled before we got to our posts. We had about 300 yards each one of us would cover.
Okay.
Like I said, we had close to 50 dogs.
Okay.
So we would cover about 300 yards, and then the guard towers would be back behind us several hundred yards. So we were the very outside edge.
The tip of the spear there, aren't you?
Right. There was a lot of activity off base and in the hills behind us and the rice paddies. They would bring the gunships out every now and then. Of course, the Army was out there all the time when the hills behind us every night.
Okay.
One night we had a Navy ship out there, and it was a destroyer, and I could see the flashes out over the ocean, look back behind me, and I could see the explosions later.
The impact, yeah.
Yeah.
For your dog, what was the hardest part you think about serving in Vietnam for him?
For him, since our dogs were so aggressive, he had to wear a muzzle all the time when we weren't on duty, when I was between transportation to and from, and he always had to have a leash on. I never, ever let him loose over there. I couldn't, even when I would take him swimming, I had a 20-foot leash I had to keep him on just in case somebody came around,
Okay.
because he would have gone right after him
So how often did you take him swimming?
as much as I could.
Okay. And you were right there on the beach, you said?
Yes,
Okay. So he liked that then for its
he loved it.
Is there a particular mission or an incident that really is fresh in your mind that you remember vividly?
There's actually about 3 things. The first thing was shortly after I got there, and these weren't related to missions because we stayed on the base. We walked the perimeter every night. But I was on one of the beach posts one night, and he alerted. And this was right after I got there, so it scared me half to death.
Mm-hmm.
So I followed up the alert, and I could see what was out there. And it was very low on the beach. Finally, I got close enough to challenge, and there was no reaction, but I could hear some grunting. Got in closer, and it ended up being a sea turtle.
No.
Scared. So that was kind of a funny little thing. The other one was I was on patrol and I was on my post at the outside edge of one of our villages. And we didn't have our concertina fence up around the outside yet. And the strike team came by. And they stopped to talk to me, so I took Fritz's leash and tied him up to one of the hooks on the back of the truck and walked up to talk to the guys in the truck. He laid down there, and just shortly after he laid down, a small child from the village went running past the truck on the driver's side, and he saw that child, and he took off after that child and broke the hook, welded hook off that truck, and went after that child. And I yelled at him, called him out, and he stopped just before he got a hold of that kid.
Oh my gosh.
That's how good their training was.
That's pretty impressive.
And the other one was November 8th. We ran into some trouble on the perimeter. And one of the guards called in, and they sent the whole security police squadron out. And there was about 350 security policemen around the base. They didn't have enough radios for everybody. So one of the guards went up to the concertina fence, and the guard that was in the tower saw him through his starlight scope, and he called in for permission to fire, and he hit him twice.
Hit the wrong person. Friendly fire.
Lost him that night.
So, what's your favorite memory of being with Fritz in Vietnam?
Biggest thing was swimming with him, enjoying the time off.
Okay.
But he enjoyed working too. He was a worker.
Yeah. Now, I mean, most people have had pets, have had dogs as pets sometime during. Now, did Fritz, was he able to be affectionate? You know,
Oh,
to you
to me all the time, just me.
Okay.
No other person, no other dog.
I know it's probably going to be very difficult to talk about, but can you talk to us maybe a little about the end of your tour when you had to be separated from Fritz and everything?
That was extremely hard.
I bet.
Got around Christmas time, Christmas Eve. They brought food around to all of us at night on the perimeter. And I made sure Fritz got his. But that was getting close to my last couple of weeks of working with him. And the last night I was on patrol with him, I sat there and cried all night.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Leaving a friend behind, leaving a buddy behind there.
My partner.
Yeah.
And I brought him in, and I sat down at the kennel and just cried.
Yeah.
And I walked away from him. I never saw him again.
So they would have brought somebody else in to be his handler at that point?
His handler had been there for a couple of weeks, so I met him.
So you'd done the transition
already
before.
He did about 2 weeks with him before I left, so I didn't get to go back down to the kennels at all to see him, to see Fritz.
Okay. Wow.
And when I left, I went back down. I went down to Cameron Bay, and I was so crazy about all this that I don't even remember how I got down there.
Wow. Yeah.
But I left from Cameron Bay. We came over, went to Japan, over Alaska, and came into North Dakota.
Okay. And so then you came back. You came back to Lockbourne then, or where
came back to. I flew from Minot, North Dakota, back to Madison.
Okay.
And my girlfriend, who is my fiance, came and met me there, and we got married. I still had 8 months more to go in the service.
Okay.
I was supposed to replace the guy that replaced me on Fritz.
Oh, okay.
And I got sent to Loring, Maine, Air Force Base, and I asked him if I could get out of being a dog handler anymore because I didn't want to take another dog over.
Right, yeah.
And so I finished my tour out. We came home in October of '68 with a German Shepherd puppy.
That's good.
One of the big things we found was 30 years later, what happened to our dogs. And they put our dogs down. They put over 2,000 dogs down at the end of that war, and mine was one of them.
So you found out Fritz was one.
I got his records. In 2009, I was able to secure his records. Okay. I found out who donated him, and when he was born, and when he was put down. And I found out that it was right in the middle of when they were bringing our troops home. They were separating the handlers from their dogs and taking their dogs and putting them down as excess equipment.
I wanted to thank you for all the time you spent coming into our school and talking to our students and everything. But I think most I wanted to, thank you for your service in Vietnam, because I know when you guys came home, you didn't hear that very often.
Yeah.